Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're covering a case that shocked the entire world in 2014 when Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 disappeared off of the face of the planet. I remember this event extremely well, and I remember the catastrophic and mysterious nature of it, and it's fascinated me ever since. And I even saw an article the other day that stated a firm called Ocean Infinity has resumed the hunt for the planes. This is very much a case that is still ongoing even today. So let's not waste any more time and get into this case together. The Malaysia Airlines 370, also known as MH370, was a Boeing 777 passenger jet plane. The Boeing 777, also known as the 777, is an American long-range wide-body airliner developed and manufactured by Boeing Commercial Airplanes. It's the world's largest twin jet and the most built wide-body airliner. The 777 program was launched in 1990, with the prototype rolling out 4 years later and the first flying in June 1994. After the successful flight testing, the 777 was awarded simultaneous airworthiness certification by the US Federal Aviation Administration and the European Joint Aviation Authorities in April 1995. The passenger jet was scheduled to take off from Kuala Lumpur and land in Beijing. This is a daily passenger flight and overall should have lasted around 6.5 hours. The weather was reported to be clear and calm that night also. The 12 crew members on board, including 2 pilots and 10 cabin crew, were all Malaysian citizens. Of the 227 passengers, 153 were Chinese citizens, 38 were Malaysian, and the remaining were from 12 different countries. At 42 minutes past midnight, the plane took off from runway 32R and was cleared by air traffic control to climb to flight level 180, approximately 18,000 feet. Shortly after departure, the flight was transferred from the airport's air traffic control to Lumpur radar. At 12:46 AM, Lumpur radar cleared the plane to flight level 350, approximately 35,000 feet. At 1 minute past 1, the flight's crew reported to Lumpur radar they had reached flight level 350, which they confirmed again at 1:08. The aircraft communication addressing and reporting system, which transmitted data about the aircraft's performance, was then switched off. The last voice communication from the crew occurred at 1:19 AM while MH370 was flying over the South China Sea, less than an hour after takeoff. Kuala Lumpur said goodnight to the pilots as they left Malaysian airspace.
Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
It was during this time that MH370 should have signalled air traffic control in Vietnam as it was about to enter their airspace. But at 1:21 AM, the plane disappeared from air traffic control radar screens, which suggested that the transponder for some reason wasn't working, or someone on board the plane manually turned it off. The aircraft was then lost from air traffic control's secondary surveillance radar screens minutes later, and all attempts to contact the plane were unsuccessful. But at 1:30 AM, Malaysian military and civilian radar began tracking the plane as it made a sharp turn and then flew southwest over the Malay Peninsula and then northwest over the Strait of Malacca. When the flight doesn't make it to Beijing at its scheduled time, it is declared missing. The multinational search effort for the plane became the most expensive aviation search in history. Efforts began in the Gulf of Thailand and in the South China Sea, where the plane's signal was last detected on secondary surveillance radar and was soon extended to the Strait of Malacca and the Andaman Sea. Quite luckily, there was a satellite which tracked the plane's movements later on that morning. A satellite in geostationary orbit over the Indian Ocean received hourly signals from MH370 and last detected the plane at 8:11 AM. Analysis of satellite communications between MH370 and the satellite concluded that the flight continued until at least 8:19 AM, nearly an hour after Malaysia Airlines publicly announced the plane's loss. And it showed that the plane flew south into the southern Indian Ocean, although the precise location is unknown. Australia assumed charge of the search on the 17th of March, when the search effort began to emphasise on the southern Indian Ocean. On the 24th of March, the Malaysian government noted that the final location determined by the satellite communication was far from any possible landing sites, and concluded that flight MH370 ended in the southern Indian Ocean. This message was repeated by the Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak. On the 29th of July 2015, over a year after MH370 went missing, Johnny Beeg found the first piece of the plane on a beach on Reunion Island. The piece was a right wing flaperon, a 2.7 metre part of the wing that controls speed and position. This piece of debris was covered in gooseneck barnacles, which did help determine that the plane had crashed in the Indian Ocean due to the debris' drift path. Over the next year and a half, more than 20 other pieces of debris were found on the shores of Africa and Indian Ocean islands. This included a horizontal stabiliser from the tail section, a stabiliser panel with a no-step stencil and an engine cowling. It also included fragments of an interior door panel, a seat frame and a coat hook. Despite all of these discoveries though, the bulk of the aircraft has still not been located. I find that extremely worrying. I mean, I guess it would make sense that the majority of the plane, if it's still in one piece, it's probably sunk to the bottom of the ocean. And in that part of the world, the ocean is extremely deep and the chances of finding it, I mean, it's very, very slim. Let's move on to the theories of what actually happened. Relatives of the victims questioned the reliability of the Malaysian government statements about MH370 crashing and organised a protest at the Malaysian embassy in Beijing. This aimed to put pressure on the Malaysian government to reveal any withheld information about the plane's whereabouts. This distrust, along with many other factors, inevitably caused many theories to be put forward about what truly happened to MH370. The most popular theory being that the captain planned to commit suicide and therefore commit mass murder. The captain himself was 52-year-old Zahiri Ahmad Shah from Penang. He joined Malaysia Airlines as a cadet pilot in 1981 and was well versed in operating multiple aircrafts, including the Boeing 777. He had a total of 18,365 hours of flying experience under his belt, which is unbelievable. I can't even picture that amount of time. Shortly after MH370's disappearance, it was revealed that Shah's wife and children had moved out of his house the day before the flight, and a friend claimed that Shah was seeing another woman and his relationship with her was also in trouble. These claims though have been denied by his family. A fellow pilot and longtime associate of Shah stated that he was terribly upset that his marriage was falling apart. Police were also investigating reports that Shah received a 2-minute phone call prior to the flight's departure from an unidentified woman using a mobile phone number obtained with a false identity. By conducting 170 interviews, investigators learned that Shah had made no social or professional plans after the 8th of March when MH370 disappeared. However, according to a French journalist, Florence D. Chanyi, who wrote a book about the flight, Shah had made a dentist appointment that was after the flight. There were also claims that Shah had planned this suicide mission on his home flight simulator. The FBI reconstructed the deleted data, and it was reported that among the deleted flight paths, one was found leading into the Southern Ocean, where a simulated landing was made on an island with a small runway. Then in 2016, it was discovered that a route on the flight simulator closely matched the projected flight over the Indian Ocean. This was later confirmed by the Malaysian government, which does make this a lot more believable. And in 2017, even more details emerged. The simulator had been flown on the 2nd of February, which was 5 weeks before the disappearance, and this data was reconstructed from data that was deleted on the 3rd of February. The first data point showed the flight beginning in Kuala Lumpur. Subsequent data points indicated the aircraft flying northwest along the Strait of Malacca before tracking southeast to the 5th data point, located deep in the southern Indian Ocean, where fuel exhaustion occurred. I mean, if you want evidence of a premeditated mass suicide, I think that's it. In the 6th and final data point, the altitude was manually set to 4,000 feet, with the aircraft observed in a nose down pitch of 5 degrees. Oh, it just gives me goosebumps just knowing that was one of the flights that he'd done on his simulator before. It's just too much of a coincidence for it to not be this. Analyses of the flap and the flaperon debris found damage on the trailing edges and minimal damage on the leading edges. Many aviation experts have suggested, therefore, that a controlled ditching did take place. This contrasts with the theory of a high-speed, uncontrolled plummet following fuel exhaustion. In 2015, a former British Airways senior Boeing 777 pilot, Simon Hardy, told BBC News that the plane's route was probably very accurate flying rather than just a coincidence. He pointed out that the plane's turn towards the northwest over the Malacca Strait allowed a clear view of the captain's home island of Penang. Someone was taking a long, emotional look at Penang. There were actually 3 turns, not 1. Someone was looking at Penang. And the next theory is hijacking. There is speculation that a hijacking took place on MH370 and that the hijackers took the plane to a remote island, although no group has claimed responsibility. 600 possible runways have been identified at which the plane was capable of landing. Conspiracy theorists have suggested that MH370 was either captured by US Navy SEALs and then flown to the US Naval base on the island of Diego Garcia, or that the plane landed at the base directly after being instructed to travel there. This was supposedly to bring to justice Chinese computer scientists believed to be responsible for hacking attacks on the US Department of Defense. To add yet another theory relating to this island, a former French airline boss claimed that MH370 was shot down by the US military near their base on Diego Garcia. I may butcher this, but several residents of Kuda Huvadhu saw a low-flying jumbo jet at around 6:15 a.m. on the 8th of March. They reported that it had red stripes across it, which is typically what the Malaysian Airlines flights look like. They also noted the incredibly loud noise it made when flying over the island and that it was flying incredibly low. The discovery of the debris in 2015 on Reunion Island led to renewed speculation that the plane had indeed been shot down near Diego Garcia, which is 1,475 miles away from Reunion, out of fears of a terrorist attack. But oceanographers such as Charita Patiarachi from the University of Western Australia said that the arrival of MH370 debris in Reunion would conform to the expected path of ocean currents from the point in its flight path where it was believed to have crashed. The next theory I'm going to talk about is a possible fire. In July 2011, another Boeing 777, Egypt Air Flight 667, suffered an oxygen-fed cockpit fire while still grounded. It destroyed the flight controls and burnt a hole through the main body of the plane. Firefighters arrived within 3 minutes, which I guess is expected because it is an airport, but the fire still took 90 minutes to extinguish. In July 1991, Nigeria Airways Flight 2120 caught fire while taking off. This destroyed the entire plane, causing a loss of 261 lives. Another theory poses that the pilots had to turn back and attempt an emergency landing at the nearest airport, such as Penang International Airport or Langkawi International Airport. In yet another example, in September 1998, Swiss Air Flight 111 experienced a cockpit fire in the electrical wiring, leading to a loss of flight instruments and control. The plane crashed into the Atlantic with the loss of 229 lives. And the worst part of this is that it was only 5 miles from emergency landing on the shore of Nova Scotia. In this case, the transponders and communications failed due to the fire and heat damage. Debris from MH370 that was discovered in February 2016 seemed to indicate burn marks, but analysis showed that it was just resin tarnishing the material. And the last theory is that the plane was shot down. According to the Financial Express, the Malaysian Air Force detected the plane on radar while it was in flight, but it took no action because it was believed to be a friendly aircraft. Author Nigel Cawthorne, in his book Flight MH370 The Mystery, alleged that the jet was shot down during a US-Thai Joint Strike Fighter jet training exercise, and searchers were purposefully sent astray to cover it up. Let's just say the book received a lot of criticism for conjuring up theories that were not based in evidence. The disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 has been described as one of the biggest mysteries in modern aviation history, with several documentaries and books having been created about the case. Hundreds of millions of dollars were spent on searching the ocean before finding any remnants of debris. There are still so many people out searching for it to this day, and it's been proposed that with the development of technology, we could one day actually find the wreckage. Many people find it hard to understand how this actually happened due to the sheer size of a Boeing 777, but it has to be noted that the Indian Ocean is the world's first third largest, and the depth of the water can reach 4,000 meters in some of the areas where they were searching. As a result of this disappearance, the aviation industry introduced 2 new forms of technology to avoid this from ever happening again. One is autonomous distress tracking, which automatically transmits the plane's position once every minute and continues to transmit its position even if the plane loses power. The other is called the Global Aeronautical Distress and Safety System, which detects and tracks planes in distress, providing a 4D position of the aircraft in order to conduct more accurate searches and rescue operations. I mean, come on, that is amazing. This is one of those events that has stuck with me since it happened because it is so mysterious, and like many people, I don't understand how this could have happened with the technology that we have in this modern world. I can only imagine what it's like for the families who've been through this ordeal and are still going through it, because they are continuing to search for the plane, which is quite right to do, but it's just a never-ending cycle of distress and experiencing that pain over and over again. Out of all of these theories, I think the most plausible one is the captain committing mass suicide because of the evidence. The fact that they found the route, the flight path in that simulator is too much of a coincidence to not be important. At the same time, I couldn't imagine a pilot knowingly taking the lives of over 200 people. I would like to think that a pilot has that ethical morality, that responsibility to look after those people, to get them from A to B. But with everything going on, you cannot be certain. The only positive consequence of this disappearance is, of course, the technology that's been implemented to avoid this from ever happening again. It's just sad that it's taken this kind of loss for that to actually be made a thing. But anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please do let me know what you think of this case in the comments. I will be covering more cases of disappearances in the future, but until then, guys, take care.